Hello, Tides of Time here. I'm going to be going over the Shaman deck I'm going to be using against Gara in the upcoming versus match. So, I experimented a lot with Doomhammer and Harrison, possibly more than anyone else, and I found that it only increases my win rate against Miracle Rogue like 10% of the time. Because one, you might not draw into it, and B, or two, you might not draw into it in time, and three, they don't auto-win you the game. And yeah, overall, it's basically increases your win rate by 10% by having them in the deck, and a lot of the time they're just like a thorn in your hand. Like, against anyone but Miracle Rogue and Hunter, Harrison Jones and Doomhammer aren't going to do much. And there's always the possibility that your opponent is running a Harrison or Ooze, and you can just get wrecked. The Doomhammer really messes up your curve sometimes because it overloads you by 2, and it's a 5 mana cost. So, yeah, a lot of the time you'll be clogged in these 5, 6, 8 drops. If you want to run Doomhammer and or Harrison Jones, I'd recommend cutting Argent Commanders and putting in a couple more 4 drops because your curve, 4 or 3 drops, because your curve becomes a lot better that way. And so if you've seen my past Control Shaman video, you'll notice that this is kind of different, and I'm just going to go over the differences between this and my last Shaman deck. So right now I made it so this deck hypothetically does not run out of high value cards. What that means is, so say I don't have 2 Argent Squires, I don't have a bunch of 3 drops. That means mid late game, if I'm not drawing into these cards, I'll have at least the high 3-4 drops. I won't just draw into 2 Argent Squires or Argent Squire into Harvest Golem. I'm always gonna have a high value card in hand, 99% of the time. And you'll notice that I have 2 Argus and 1 Senjin. I think this is rather important, since I'm not running Harrison and Doomhammer. I do need a lot of taunts to stand a better chance against Miracle Rogues and whatnot. This deck is also designed more or less to beat Druids 80% of the time, and against Miracle Rogue, I'd say it's about 50%. Against other Shamans, I'd say it's around 60 to 70%. And against Mage Hunter, it just depends on what kind of Mage and Hunter they are. Usually against Miracle Rogue, Freeze Mage, and Hunter, it more or less depends on your opponent's hand rather than your hand, and it's really hard to increase the win rate. The only thing that you can do is put in, Doomhammer. If you want, you could take out an Argent Commander and put in Doomhammer. That really wouldn't be such a bad idea. But yeah, I really like the fact that Argent Commander can kill Azure Drakes and Auctioneers immediately, whereas Doomhammer you have to tank 8 damage to kill them. But yeah, let's see how they do, or this deck does against Gara.